Three, two, one.
Hi, and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the new episode of this webcast. I'm very glad to welcome you all on behalf of Intel and Department of Science and Technology on this webcast for Innovate for Digital India Challenge. I'm very glad to have Ms. Aruna Jayanthi, CEO of Capgemini, as our distinguished guest here, and she's going to give her very interesting insights on what she thinks about the entire innovation ecosystem in the country. Uh, just to give introduction, Aruna is CEO of Capgemini India, and she's also a member of the group executive committee of Capgemini, and she's also on board of the Sweden country board. She's been one of the very few members from India who has been part of multinational boards and really driving a very global influence strategy. She has almost 2 decades of experience in different spaces in IT space, and she has really carved herself as a niche as a leading businesswoman from India, and she has been featured in many magazines and really featuring driving the force of innovation from India. So welcome, Aruna, to the
Thank
show,
you.
and we'd love to have you here as the guest today, and we would like to interact with you on the entire gamut of how we are driving the challenge, and also interact with our team in Pune, and also like to take some questions from them as we move on our discussion. So to kickstart, I'm sure you must have heard about the entire concept of Innovate for Digital India Challenge. And what we'd like to know is your views and how do you see this evolve from your experience, and what do you think about the entire concept? So maybe you can give us some thoughts from your side.
Yeah. So first of all, hello to all of you in Pune and others on the webcast. I think, first of all, congratulations for having made it to the top 20 teams here. I think it's a very exciting one. When Intel asked me to meet with you all, I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person in Pune, but I didn't want to miss the chance of speaking with you. I think it's one of the most exciting things. And when I look at the challenge and the way that it is structured, I wish I had this opportunity 20 years ago, because at that time I have to say there was no startup ecosystem, no funding, no coaching, no mentoring, nothing at all. So I'm sure you recognize that you're in a good place right now. Okay? And congratulations to Intel, the government, for really pushing hard with this innovation agenda for Digital India. And I truly believe, I've said this before many times in public forum, that I truly believe in the in the dream of Digital India. And I think if every young or old person in India gets together and figures out solutions, I think we can make a great difference, because at the end, it's not the government that does everything, and it's not everything is top down, and each one of us has a role to play in terms of what we develop for the nation and take it forward. So nice to see you all here. I also took a look at, I just took I got a 4-sentence synopsis of each of your projects, if I can call that. And I have to say they're quite interesting, the ones in healthcare, financial services, e-governance, and so on. So I think there's a good set of themes out there. I cannot right now say which one will be successful and will not. It depends on how each one of you develop it. But I think overall, I have to say that the jury did a great job in picking some good ideas out there. There's just a couple of things I would say before we get started on the questions on what I think is really important when I looked at those. And number one is, the feasibility of the solution. Really, is it feasible and easy to implement? And sorry, I don't mean to pick on anybody, but I saw one of them which said that a battery life of 5 to 7 days, and I thought, if you take a solution with a battery life of 5 to 7 days for a wearable, come on, guys, who can afford to buy a battery every 7 days, right? I hope what I read was wrong, but things like that. So, how easy and simple it is for adoption. It could be. I think it's a great idea, but really, can somebody afford it? Is it, in that sense, if you want to reach to the masses, it needs to be economical, affordable, and easy to use at the end of the day. So I think we can get into the detail as we go along, but I just think that there are many criteria that I would look at when I look for innovative solutions. But the top of mind for me are what need does it meet in the market, and how simple is the solution. It doesn't have to be a complex solution. The more simple it is, sometimes is the best solution. So simplicity, what need does it address? Is it scalable? Is it economical? So these are the few key things that I would look at. And at the end, I hope you make money out of it. Because if you don't make money, you're not going to put your life and heart and soul into making that work. So just a few simple things, and we can get into more detail as we go along. The other aspect of it is, as I said, 20 years ago, this kind of ecosystem didn't exist. And I did say that, you're fortunate to be at this time and place where you are. But when I look at what is really successful in terms of an ecosystem, I think you cannot, you can have a great idea, and I know all of you have great ideas out there, but at the end, it's the ecosystem that makes it work. When I think about it, it's about, do you have the right subject matter experts? Because you may be a doctor, you may be a healthcare professional, but at the end of the day, you need to connect with a set of healthcare people who actually know how to take it to the end customer. Do you have an ecosystem of those people who are looking at your idea, validating it? Do you have the right technology specialists to make it a very scalable architecture and to take it beyond? Do you have good designers who are looking at the user interface of it and making it very intuitive and so on? And then do you have access to the customers? Do you have either large companies or small companies or whoever it is? Do you have the ability to test it out in the market? So I think the ecosystem is very, very important, and I saw from whatever I heard from Intel that you will be getting that, you're already getting that. So I think innovation, the most important thing, which I think didn't exist in the country before, both the funding and this availability of the ecosystem is extremely important, and the country has now woken up to say that, look, we are not just in the IT products and services business, but we are also in terms of creation of IP and value add, and therefore there's a lot of support for what each of you are trying to do within the country.
So I'm going to kind of come to you on that innovation ecosystem part of it.
Yeah.
Definitely, we have seen a lot of increase in support for innovators and startups over the last few years. Do you think, are we doing enough on the innovation ecosystem built up from the various parts of the industry? Are we doing enough?
I think there are about 3-4 initiatives which are in play in the country. For example, Masscom's 10K startup program, which is doing that. There are what we call as startup garages, which are set up quite similar to where you have, where it's almost like a pre-built environment for startups, where you can just go plug and play, make use of experts, make use of an existing infrastructure, because it would be very difficult for a startup to start investing in each of these pieces. So to really I think that the country, there are at least 3 to 4 different places where this kind of infrastructure is being set up. And it's not just in the big cities that you think of, like in Bangalore or otherwise. I mean, I've seen it, I was once in Calicut a few months ago, and even in a small town like Calicut, I saw quite a large ecosystem around the which is available for startups. So I think it's starting. It could always be better, but I do think that it's gaining very rapidly.
Right. And what do you think the kind of challenges which we are talking about, will those kind of challenges with a lot of industry support, will that bring a difference to how we are influencing innovation in the country?
I do think, with the whole digital and the SMAC era, I think to take innovation out there in the market has become much more easier. It's not like the earlier days where you're looking at a big product, the route to market was limited. You had to have field sales force to take it to market and so on. Now with social media and everything else, your ability to market, your ability to find new customers, to ability to put it on an app store somewhere is so much easier. So I just think the reach, it's a different model altogether now, which makes it quite easy.
Right. So I think with the reach and the real the theme of how we really then connect with the digital India and the relevance of the solutions to it. Now, do you see the today's startups or whatever we are seeing the entire investment coming in, are there enough focus on the real challenges in front of the country and really trying to figure it out those areas as a focus areas?
Yes and no. Okay, I took a look at some of the list of startups that I saw. I think, unfortunately, a lot of the money and the amounts is still going into e-commerce. Okay? So to create these new sites, to buy, sell, trade, and so on, which is nice, but it's really not innovative or different. I mean, of course, it's a good business model. It serves a certain need in the market, but is it innovative in terms of a very differentiated solution or addressing a new need in the market? It's not there. But having said that, I've also seen many which primarily are in the area of, let's say, health, education. There's a lot happening in education, which is very interesting, which really addresses one of the core problems the country has, which is around availability of teachers and classrooms and, taking education to everybody. Because if you look at the, hierarchy of needs, I would say you can do a lot of things in different things around e-governance and all of that, but at the bottom of it, if you don't have literacy or digital literacy, there's not much that an e-governance application can do for you. So I think at the very base level, we got to address the literacy issue, and that for me is if I have to pick one area, I would pick that one to say literacy is it. And I think there I've seen quite a few things out there, but still we don't have a way to ensure its adoption in rural India. I mean, we can make it available, but really what about the adoption, the last mile connection and all of that? That's one thing. The second one where I've also seen lots of interesting work is in the area of e-governance. Simple, even to encourage citizens' involvement in e-governance. Somebody was showing me an, he's a developer in Surat, and he was showing me an app. It says, you hear of problems and you complain to the government that, here there's a pothole, here this one, but actually to take a photograph, within 10 seconds it's on a site, and and the field officers of the municipality are forced to look at that every morning and say, okay, these are the complaints received in the day, and do it. So there's simple solutions, and he was showing me how he's implemented all across 3-4 districts in Gujarat. So I think there's a lot happening. I'm not saying these are mass scale, but I do think that there's lots of good stuff in education and in e-governance. I think healthcare is also catching up.
That's great, because even the teams which we have in the challenge, I think there's a fair bit of interesting mix of teams who are working on e-governance problems and really taking that call on how they can really create those simple but effective solutions in really reaching it out to the entire masses in the country and to figure it out how they can really get help based on what they see, what they need, and then connecting the right government department on that. So I think that's the kind of experience probably get to see once we have the more detailed touch with the teams also. Now, as you talked about the entire the SMAC and the way people are now creating the connects between different digital aspects to it is really increasing. Now, what areas other than that you should probably your views are, or the innovator should focus on to really get a solution in the market? Is just the digital things enough, or what do you think are more than that is required?
First of all, it has to address a basic need, and I think we need to be clear on what is that need. So I would say simplified to a point that maybe it just addresses one clear customer segment rather than being catering to everybody, but that absolute directional focus on why will that one customer buy my product is absolutely essential.
Right.
Okay, so that's I think clarity on what is the need that app is trying to solve, and that person, can he afford to buy my solution? The affordability, scalability, and can it scale? I mean, it's good if you try it in a lab with 10 people or 100 people, if I take it out and say with India's population, you say, okay, 10 million people have to try it or even more, will it work or not? So those are some of the basic things. But another aspect which is for me, which is catching my attention quite a bit these days is security. And you hear of so many apps that are not secure, and I think that's. I'll tell you just a little bit of an anecdote. Somebody told me that you go to a banking site and you feel comfortable giving your credit card details and so on, because you know that a big bank would have really invested in security and made sure it's good.
Right.
Okay, and then you go to another site and where you can download your favorite music, okay, and you set up a user ID password for that, and then you download music, okay, and the password you use is the same in both the sites, okay. So, and that site with the for the music is not so secure, okay. So easily a hacker would go there, figure out your, get the profiles of people, and then they can go to the other side. So, I think it's like what they say in a chain, the weakest link is what, the strength of a chain is the weakest link, and that's what could happen. So unless we are really able to secure our apps very easily, no matter how simple it is, it doesn't have to be the most critical financial app, but, even the simplest ones, I think we'll have to ensure that they are highly, highly secure.
It was a very interesting point. I think while we debate a lot on the simplicity and the UX and the ease of use of the applications, a lot of times maybe security is kind of forgotten as a critical factor unless it's a very financial rich application. So I think you've got a very interesting topic in terms of how those applications or systems also use security as a very clear vector to move on. Great. So what we're going to do is that probably we'll pick up some questions from our teams in Pune, and then use them kind of to share their thoughts, their views, and ask you a few questions.
Yeah.
So if you are ready, the Pune team, we can ask a few questions. In case you are ready, let me know, or we can then continue. I think somebody is ready there, so maybe we can get a question from Pune.
I see a hand up.
I think, yeah. If you can give a microphone to the Pune site, we can.
I am Mayuresh Uli from Sunset Out. My product is Jai Kisan. It's an agriculture technology, agriculture for IoT-based agriculture. So my question is, I was placed in Capgemini, but instead of going, I joined this. So did I make the right choice?
Let's wait for a year till your product is successful, and then we'll see. So I tell you what, I think I think you made the right choice. I would always encourage, when people come and tell me they want to leave CAP because they want to start something on their own, I'm the first one to encourage it, because I think it's good to encourage that kind of talents. And, you look very young to me still, so even if that goes wrong, which I hope it doesn't, I hope you're very successful, but, you can, there's enough time for you to try out different things.
Great. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Karan. We're from Team Udhar. We're working on a credit scoring model for people who are not covered by the CIBIL score. So my question is related to a TED talk that you had given. It was related to passion and people and like all about that. So you had a concept called armchair visionaries, right? People are pretty smart, but then they don't really execute on anything. So my co-founder had asked a question to Steve Blank, and it was about like how can you actually teach entrepreneurship. So like he said that it's not actually about how well you teach entrepreneurship, but it's about selecting the people who are passionate. So my question to you is, what are some things that you've learned about how to select people who are passionate, and then how do you identify people who fake it, and then can you actually transfer some passion from a passionate person to a person who's technologically capable and make the whole team like just resonate that passion?
Gosh, that's a tough one. Okay, but I tell you what, let's first address one of your questions. Can you identify someone who's passionate or whether he's faking it? I think you can. Come on. I think you know the answer as well, right? You talk to a guy for half an hour, you can figure it out, right? Whether he's genuinely got it in his heart and soul to make it work, or he's just pulling a fast one to find some work with you. So I think you can detect it. If you're smart, you can detect it, and I think all of you guys are smart enough out there. Second is, how do you, if just one person or two people in a team have that passion, how do you get the entire team to do it? It really depends on the leader of the team. Okay, it depends on how well you communicate your idea, how well you can transmit that passion to others. I think it's easily, it's like, how do you call it? It's infectious. A good idea is infectious. Okay, you can very easily get a whole momentum around it and get it, but you must have the conviction to do it, and then the passion is obviously transmitted. Okay, and on your third point about armchair visionaries, I do think that and about entrepreneurship and teaching it, I think you have to experience it at some time. So, and let me just clarify out there, okay? To me, entrepreneurship is not just starting in something independent outside of a corporate environment. And I say this to our people, you can be within a large organization such as Capgemini or Intel and still be an entrepreneur. It's really about not just doing what you're told to do, but actually it's all about taking an idea that you have, having the conviction to, go to your boss and say, look, let me do this. I believe this is a great idea. Here's a business case. I want to do it. That's entrepreneurship. So I just want to caution you that don't imagine that entrepreneurship exists only outside of a corporation and you have to be a startup to be an entrepreneur. In my view, yes, that's the classical definition, but the spirit of entrepreneurship is also there in a large organization.
So just to add to that point which was mentioned, innovation in large companies, I think a very interesting topic. So as the startups or young companies are creating new ideas or new approaches of creating businesses, how do you see that happen in large companies like Capgemini? What do you see how your systems or your culture really provide that model?
There is a different. I would say large companies will have a more structured innovation model. And therefore it could be a little slower. So it's like you try to move an elephant, it takes a little bit time, but then what all of us do is to create units within a larger organization which are far more agile and can move faster when it comes to innovation. It would be more structured, and I think large companies would have the ability for failures. I think one thing that we recognize in innovation is only 1 out of 10 ideas or 1 out of 100 ideas might work. So a larger company might have the deeper set of pockets to be able to afford that, and also have the discipline to be ruthless about it and say, okay, I've tried it for 3 months, it doesn't work, let's cut it out and move on. Whereas if you put your heart and soul and start a startup on your own, then you might be less reluctant to be as ruthless, unless you run out of money. Then it'll happen automatically anyway. Yeah.
I think that's a really good one. So you have a passionate idea, but when you decide to kind of leave it if it's not working and then move on something else, I think that's a very critical choice people have to make. Okay, any more questions before we add from my side? Okay, so maybe you can just think about it. I will come back to you guys in a couple of more minutes. So one question on the entire innovative ecosystem, we talked about what's happening in India. We have talked about opportunity which are kind of getting created. How do you see India in comparison with few other countries? I'm sure you have seen so many other countries in the map of innovation. How do you see India is currently positioned in that perspective?
That's a tough one. Okay. I mean, I'm trying to see how straightforward I should be, but I do think we are behind. Okay, we are way behind. That's where we are, and we have to accept that. Yes. So I think clearly US is one of the ones that's way ahead. I know Israel is also way ahead of us, and also there are pockets in many other countries, and many other countries are ahead of it. I just say that for me, innovation has to start as a way of thinking, as a way of, right from your school system and your, education, even at the universities. And I think in India, our investment into research and development is, I think, just not there at the universities. I think it's also to do with our way of learning. The whole academic system in schools is not experiential, but it's more learn that and reproduce it. So I think there's a lot that we'll have to really take a look at in order to develop that questioning mind, whereas in India we tend to be culturally a lot more obedient.
Right.
You tell a kid, yeah, a very nice obedient child. I'm not sure that's the best quality that a child needs to have. Okay, a mother might say, okay, thank God he's obedient, but I think it's sometimes to have a little bit of discovery and experiential situations is very good. So I think there's a lot in which we are. I would say we need to catch up to create an innovative ecosystem.
Great. So what we are also doing is that we are also making this open to our folks who are listening from outside, and we're also asking questions on Twitter. So we'll also pick up a few questions which are coming via Twitter, so we can also talk to people who are connected online.
Yeah.
So one of the question is, India has been talking a lot about creating a lot of hardware infrastructure like broadband initiatives and which are already on the ground. Again, those are the efforts which have really take us to a certain step, like about 15 million broadband users which are using fixed line. Now, do you think how are we doing enough, or are we doing enough to even promote the infrastructure from a use perspective? Are we able to create some kind of use case scenario for all that infrastructure to be really productive?
On one hand, you hear about infrastructure not being adequate and ready. So I think there are two sides to it, right? So is the infrastructure really available at the last mile to everyone that needs it? That is one part of it. But the second is, how can we best make sure infrastructure is used? I think we can get lost in big numbers, saying that, okay, we have so many people who have access to mobile phones and mobile phone penetration, the absolute volume is one of the highest in the world and so on. But at the end of the day, it is what are the apps that are available that can be used on the phones? And secondly, is everybody who's using a phone able to use it in English?
Right.
And so therefore, do we have enough in, let's say, regional languages and so on? Like the lady who works with me at home, she's only learned to press the numbers by position. Okay, I don't think she can read those numbers and do anything with it. And even if she did, it's the English she can't get in there. So I think it's also availability of apps in a regional language and all of that stuff. So I think we have both an issue of infrastructure as well as where infrastructure is available, availability of the right set of apps and the right, ability to relate it to the people who can use them.
So one more question which is coming online is, while creating innovative products for Digital India, is it important to be unique?
Let's face it, ideas, a good idea within 3 months can be replicated. So uniqueness is a very, very, has a very short window. Okay? And the barriers to technology are not very high. It's not like in a manufacturing setup where you'll take time to set up a plant and invest in it. So here, you might, with a unique idea, you might have a max of 6 months of lead time. So it's not the uniqueness that matters. Eventually, it's really about how soon are you able to build a user base, and how much of good customer service are you able to provide. So customer service, I would say, is key. The way you market it is key. I mean, if you have 20 apps doing the same thing, why will yours stand out versus the 19 others? So it's more in terms of positioning, branding, marketing, and of course, it has to be good at the end of the day. It's not all about marketing.
Sure. We talked about the the local language challenge, right? We talk about, I think it's a great need to have the technology usage happen in local language. Now, our country is a very unique country. We have so many languages, so many regions which are around there. Now, while we are building these applications and also creating now a language part of it, now still we see the usability across the different region. It's still not picking up because for various reasons. Now, what would you probably tell the innovators like here to really push the local language as a vector or the usability as a vector? Because sometimes it's like a common problem. Should I put local language as an area of focus or the usability as a focus? So what will be your thought?
I don't think there's a simple answer to that. It really depends on what kind of app and what's your target audience. If it's largely educated, metro type of people, then I would say more is usability. So it depends on that. If you're catering to a very rural, let's say, agricultural segment, then maybe regional language is far more important. So it really depends on the target audience, I would say.
Okay, so do we have any more questions from Pune? We can't hear you. So
Hello.
Yeah, it's okay now.
This is Hani Thakuria from Team Srijana. A little bit you have discussed about the challenges in rural, language issues and all. Still, if some innovation is going to be there, entrepreneurs try to first try it in the urban area, because they think that reaching to the rural is challenging. So, should develop a repeatable, scalable model in the urban area, and then after getting profit, try to reach the rural areas. So even if you have mentioned that the 20 years before ecosystem and today ecosystem has completely been changed, still today's ecosystem is also finds much challenges in rural areas. So can you say your views on that?
No, again, the answer would be the same as the earlier one. It depends on the app and the target audience. I think, first of all, you need a certain level of scale in order to test it in a certain market. So I would say there's nothing wrong, and I would actually say that, try it out first in a small rural segment. I met somebody in Calicut who was developing drones for the coconut farmers. I mean, he's not going to be able to test it in Mumbai anywhere. Okay, so then he has no choice but to do it out there in the rural area. So really, it depends on it. But if you take a pure e-commerce type, which none of you I think are doing it from the list that I saw, but if it is purely intended at an urban audience, even there I would say you can always find small cities where you can do that. It doesn't always have to be Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore or anything like that. Take a small town like Ranchi or Patna or one of those, and then try that out. So I think it can be tested anywhere, and maybe actually a bigger success would be to try it out in the small towns, because then once you know that adoption catches on there, you know that you can try it out in multiple other cities. Seems to be another one.
Any more question?
I think.
There one more question.
Hi, so I have a second question for you. So this is also a two-part question. So it's related to how a startup should be working with like companies like yours, like consulting firms and other larger firms, and how you've seen good models, like good best practices of large firms working with startups. So specifically, my question is on the lines of like we see like we've spent a ton of our time reinventing the wheel. Like so, for example, maybe a dashboard or whatever, like what we're developing. If it's already existing, it kind of wastes our time to rebuild the solution again. So it might be better off if we can sort of figure out that this solution is already present, like by companies like yours, and we can reutilize them, and at a later stage figure out how we can pay you, and we can share the whole value chain with larger companies.
Okay, so let's look at how really you can collaborate with the corporate sector. Okay, first of all, let me give you an example of what we are doing and how it's relevant to us. So first, what I've heard from many startups is, please, we don't want money and we don't want interference. Okay, so you tell me whether I'm wrong there. Okay, nobody wants it, and I've discovered that while, let's say, many years ago, funding was an issue, these days funding doesn't seem to be an issue, and people stay away from us. We want to own what we have. All we're looking for is mentorship and access to market. Okay, the ability to reach the market, I think, is the biggest issue. Now, having said that, what we are doing is, we also have several of our customers, if you take us as an example, several of our customers who are looking for certain innovative solutions, which face it, even large companies like us will not have everything. Okay? And we also have to rely on a set of, either within our own organization or in our partner ecosystem to get those ideas. So what we've done, we've started with it in the Silicon Valley, and we will do the same here in India. Is what we've done is we have actually tied up with somebody who curates, okay, startups. So let's say there are 1,000 startups, okay, and then we say that, look, we need somebody who's really working on, let's say, something to do with RFID in XYZ's industry. They come back to us with 4 or 5 startups and say, look, here they are.
Right.
And then we work then with our customers and these shortlisted 4 startups to say, okay, how do we bring these 2 together and then do that? We take our customers to these startup environments and what we call startup garage to show them what it is, because it's beneficial to us, right? See, we are in the business of, not in the business of products, so we are in the business of offering a service to our customers. And if that service, we are able to source it from Intel, from Microsoft, from any of you guys, it would work, right? So we are in that sense a system integrator or a service integrator to our customers, okay? And if I look at our role as that, I think there is a big place for us to work with the startup companies. As I said, we've started doing that in one part of the world. We will also do that here eventually. Second part of it is your question around, if you already have a dashboard and can be linked to it, it would be provided we've already agreed on a solution. Okay, otherwise it would be very difficult, and to expect a larger company to change some of these things to fit you would be a little bit difficult. And let's face it, when you're trying to sell something, you have to be adaptable to make the change yourself. Okay? We do it all the time for our customers, right? Customer A will say, I want it this way. Customer B will say, we want it this way. We have to change it. Come on, that's life.
Like just adding to what he just said, trying to create some kind of open source of your frameworks, right? I think that could be a very interesting idea, because you don't obviously do everything, because obviously you have a business and customers are protective of the security and how they're treating. But with this idea of open source, some of your components or practices which can then be used by a greater ecosystem, is that could it be a good idea? What do you think about that?
I think it could be a good idea. I think we are not there yet ourselves, but I do think that that's the direction in which the industry could move. And I know that some of the other companies are already in that process. So, if I look at the industry as a whole, I do think that it would be happening already. And I like what you said. It's like an open source environment, right? So you plug and play and look at different components and so on. I'll tell you one thing, okay? I think today, when I look at our customers, some of the very, very large ones, gone are the days when you say, I will take 18 months or 2 years to implement, let's say, a large ERP or a global system, okay? Right. Which used to be the case. And that's how a lot of us really built our business on. Everybody wants it here and now. Okay? Right. And the agility, speed to implementation is so important that many of our customers are saying that, look, you have so many cloud services, you have so many as a platform services, let us get the best of breed in each one of them and then really cobble them together for a customer solution rather than, it's mash up and then that we start to implement it for customers rather than really creating everything from scratch. In fact, we won a big deal in UK just based on that one, and I think we're integrating something like 26 different components. It's a nightmare, but but it's still, I think that's the future.
I think that's very interesting. Any more questions from our teams?
Hi Aruna, I am Sachin from Team 24. We are working on the rural and remote skill development education tech company.
Sorry, can you repeat that? It was hard to hear.
Can you repeat?
Yeah. Hi Aruna, I am Sachin from Team 24. We are working on the skill development. We are on a skill development company, and I want to ask you a question like from your vast experience, what you say for. Hello, can you hear?
Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you please share from your vast experience what skills are needed for empowering the women?
I think we should first talk about what skills men need so that women are empowered. Right? So I think we need, do the women in that room agree there? Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I think, that's like, I think it'll take a decade or more to change that for empowering women. But I'll tell you what, I think there is a lot that is already going on in the country. The whole national digital literacy mission, the NDLM centers. I think those are great. We started one in Salem. And it's amazing, there are grandmothers coming to learn what to do. I'm not sure she will really use a smartphone, but, very keen on learning and then picking that up. But, whether they really use it or not, I think the sense of empowerment that they get, the fact that, they're independent, to teach them the basic skills around if they set up something on their own, what to do. I was reading about, with the 50% reservation in panchayats for women, what can you do? And many of them are saying it takes them 3 years to actually figure out how to run it. And usually the husband, they are there in the front and then the husband runs the panchayat in their place. So I think as a country, we've got some of the ingredients that are needed to empower women. But at the end, I think the society has to allow them to do it, right? That's why I said most important thing is to educate men, to let the women do something.
Yes.
I'll continue the same question. Actually, what the difference women will make when they are sitting as a CEO than the man?
I don't know whether I should ask somebody else that question, but I personally think that at the end, a CEO is a CEO, nothing to do with being a man or woman. So a good CEO is the same. Okay, so forget about that making any difference.
Okay, yeah, we have a couple more questions.
Hi Aruna, hi Sachin. Ravi here from Team Udar. So my question is around the whole debate of products and services. So in India, there's a debate going on that we are a services industry company. We need to shift to product or knowledge economy. So how do you see, like all kinds of automation are happening? You are a very big company which is into services, but sometime down the line, let's say 5 years later, you wouldn't need that many services people because machine learning will automate a lot of things. So is a shift going on in your company towards products, or how are you countering that?
So I'd say yes. As a company, we recognize what automation means, and I do think it is essential for us. So if you're doing a job, let's say a certain job with 100 people today, I think to me it's very conceivable that even within the next 1 year or 2 years, we'll do it with only 80 people. And then let's say 3-4 years down the line, will we do it with 50 people or even 10 people? I don't know. If you look at, for example, infrastructure support, it's gone down from whatever 100 to 5 kind of scale in some of the cases. So for me, automation is a reality. And therefore, for us in the services business, we have to recognize that our business is based not on the number of people. It's not directly linked to the number of people, but it has to be linked on a value that you deliver. And that's where the whole industry is therefore shifting to what is called as the services on a platform-based model. So that is where really where does the value add come? Your value add is not coming from people doing some coding, because eventually you'll have a whole lot of tools and automation as well. So I think the value add has to come from what is the same as for you in a startup, what is the business need you're trying to solve, and can you put the service and the product together and then get it together? So what we call is platform services. The only thing I would say is the product need not be ours. If you're truly agnostic as a services company, we'll say, okay, here's a product for insurance, for an insurance industry. These are the 3 different products, and then we build a platform. And then we provide a service along with that platform. So I think increasingly the industry will shift to platform-based business services as opposed to just a people-based business. So the whole model will change.
I want to add a supplementary question to what he just asked. We talked about innovation on the one side, where we are talking about new areas of creating opportunities, and we're also talking about the existing business transforming. Now, from a skill set perspective, what do you think is now really required as you map maybe your teams out here, or as you look at the industry here? What do you think are the skill sets you think are going to be relevant in your time soon?
Let's look at it at 3 different categories of skills that we will need. Okay, number 1 is pure technology. I mean, I think we will need far more of those digital, this analytics, mobile, IoT, these kinds of skills. The second level of skill, I would say, is really in terms of your working styles. Okay, how can you develop work in a far more agile way, using different, the methods that you use, they are quite different from, let's say, what one used 10 years ago. And the third one is it's really the understanding of the business side of it. How well do you understand the business and the customer and how you can relate to them? So those are broadly the 3 skills that we would look for.
I think that's great. Any more questions?
Hi, I have one question. From an international perspective, India is considered to be a very efficient market in human resource, mostly in IT field.
Sorry, did you say?
So, other than the IT, other than the IT industry, what do you think in the India perspective, young India perspective? What are the other areas? I just listened to you on the previous question which Sachin has asked. So you have given a lot of points on technological perspective and as well as the other attitude perspective. But what are the other areas you feel that India, young India, should be improving to prove the ability of any individual across the country?
Okay, this is not related to any specific industry, okay, but I think we need to develop the skill of, let me try, see if I can explain this correctly, to be more challenging, to be more questioning and challenging, okay. I'll first take an example from my own business, okay. Customers often tell us that the biggest problem with Indians is you do what you're told and you don't question enough, okay, which is a problem. Even when we know intuitively that what the guy is saying will not work or anything like that, we know it, but we're too afraid to say it, or we say, chalega, let's do it, okay. So I think there is a mindset and an attitudinal thing that we need to change to be more challenging, questioning, but in a constructive way. I don't mean, just say, "Nay, this won't work," and then leave it. Okay, so to be constructive about it, and that I think is true for across the board in any industry, in anything else that you need. The second one, I think, is to really start to look at what is the impact of what I'm doing, and how does it serve that specific market. It comes back to a point that I made at the beginning. Who is the customer and what am I doing and why am I doing this? Okay, and I think that relating it to the end user or the end customer is the important, and it is true for anything. You look at it in terms of any knowledge industry, that is true, or even if you take manufacturing. Okay, and I'll come to that. And the third one is around our attention to quality. Okay, I think we let it go at times. You know, I'm sorry if I sound negative here, but I think we have too much of a chalta hai attitude at times. You know, we get it right 99% of the time, but that last 1% can be our undoing because we have not paid attention to the final details. So I would say those are the three: challenging, constructive challenge, understanding of why we are doing and what end purpose it serves, and the third is attention to quality. I think those are important irrespective of what industry we are talking about.
I think that's very well said. I think
Thank
very,
you.
useful things for across. It's not very industry specific, but I think that's more of a changing our attitude and our habits of how we react, how we respond to situation. I think very well said on that.
How many of you have worked before, or how many of you are fresh out of college? How many of you have worked before? Okay, so you must have a view of what are the skills you were missing and you need, right? Any views?
So I worked in 2 years in EXL Analytics, so basically a services company. So one of the skills I identified that was missing was business understanding. So I came from IIT computer science background, which is all engineering. And then into EXL, you have to deal with clients. So they have a different requirement, they have a different understanding, and I am telling them from technical perspective that no, this thing works like this and I should build it like that. And they would have a completely different argument that this is a business case and you should look at that. So that is one skill that people lack usually. So over 2 years, I think I gained a little bit on that.
That's good.
Any more views? Any more observations?
Still, I'm a fresher, but I want to share my experience with the traditional rotan methodology and the long educational system India is having. A few months back, I graduated from Nirma, Ahmedabad, and it was like I got placed in an MNC Cognizant. So during the both of the interviews, technical and HR, they asked me some general questions like, do you have any problem with relocation, or tell me about yourself. So I think that for answering these two questions, I've around studied for 15 to 16 years. So what's the basically need for such an long education lineup? Can't India switch to experiential learning concept where people don't have to wait to study till 15 years or 18 years and then get a job? Do you think really this long education experience is needed? Because due to this problem, people in rural area can't don't send their children for education because they think that after even studying for 16 to 17 years, there is no probability that my son or daughter is going to get a job. So do you think that India needs to transform from this traditional education system?
Okay, I'm not sure this is the scope of this discussion, but anyway, let me take 10 seconds, a minute to answer it. So first of all, if you think that whoever selected you because of you said yes to relocation and yes to something else, I think you're mistaken. Okay, I think it's because you have your education that they gave you. The two questions are superfluous, not your education. Don't forget that. Okay. And I think it's important. Maybe in a few years you will recognize it. It's not the degree that matters, but it's the fundamental of the education that matters. It's your ability to think for yourself.
I think this is a definitely shift happening towards more experiential in terms of what you have in you to kind of really talk about compared to what you have on the paper. So I think that's something which people are anyway observing, and I think that's the trend, that's the shift is already started happening. So I think when you say experiential learning is critical, yes, everybody recognizes that. The challenge is that how do we kind of make it in all across our different businesses, and how do we map it to the requirements, what business really needs. I think that's where the connects are going to happen. So I think that's what my interpretation of what is going to happen in near time soon. So I think a very interesting question on how people are exploring their own areas. So switching back to the some of the topics which we discussed, we talked about the e-governance and the applications around government really reaching out to citizens in different areas of how they want to reach it out. Now, if you look at the entire model of the mission world projects and what government is trying to do you see the Indian IT industry has anything specific role in that model? How do you see that government initiative and our industry really taking up as a business opportunity?
So I think there's a lot of scope for new applications, new services to be built, and certainly it's the industry that has to step up and do it. Whether it's the GST implementation or not. I just saw an announcement on that this morning.
Right.
So I think it's the industry that has to do it, and it is unreasonable to expect that the government will have its own team, because at the end of the day, the industry has access to some of the best talent in terms of technology. I don't mean just services companies, even the product companies or organizations like Intel. So I think everybody has to just get together and do what they have to. I know you're doing a lot with the government. I know, for example, other companies like Cisco and others also do quite a bit there.
So as we're adding thoughts on that, anybody who's having any other question from the teams? Yeah, we have one more hand there.
Hello. Hi, I'm Gunjan. I'm from Telmet. I'm creating a wearable device in form of glass for visually impaired people. So I was just surfing internet and I checked that Capgemini held 2 months back some survey kind of or a workshop kind of thing for visually impaired people, where they blindfolded their employees and did some fun task to give this to inform the people how this visually impaired people perceive the life, or how is their working style or something. So my question to ma'am is, as they are very much sensitive towards the disabled community and they have good rules regarding these people to employ in their company, how many people they are employed which are disabled, and what are the features or technologically devices in which way you are helping those people in your company?
I don't have the exact number of people who are disabled, but I do know that we have quite a few, maybe 400-500 people. So it's not a lot, okay? It's not a lot when you look at close to 80,000 people. So, but what we do is, I think we have identified types of jobs which can be done by disabled, and we are fully promoting it only since 18 months or so. So it's a start. I'd like to see more of these people being employed. So today there are in different categories, visually impaired, because if you have to answer a phone call and do some work, you don't need to, you can do it without seeing. So we hire both visually impaired as well as people who are physically handicapped in some way. So we provide all of that. But what we think is not, I think there are very, very talented people, even though they have a disability. But I think it's more to get the organization to learn that, they can, it's not a handicap really, that they can form part of the team, which is why we did some of those workshops and things like that. It was more to get the acceptance of the colleagues that, look, it's okay to employ such a person. Okay, but I'd like to see what you're doing to help visually impaired people there.
One more question, ma'am. Before this, probably in 2010, Capgemini had something. Capgemini started working for visually impaired people in collaboration with some different company in UK, some revenue and revenue system related some company. So at that time, the accessibility team of Capgemini made some feature for on-screen reading. even this thing was made like way before, around 5 years before, and they were trying to develop the thing more and more. So I don't know what is the status of it today, but I feel like what I'm trying to develop is an op-screen reader for visually impaired people. And as the company, as a Capgemini, such kind of big company has made such device for on-screen reading, they must have developed something or should be doing something related to this thing as of now, I think.
Okay, I'll tell you what, I'm not up to date on that, but what I will do is I'll get your details from the Intel team. I'll introduce you to our team that handles, who's really handling our disability program. And if you can, I'm more than happy for you to see what they're doing and for you to show them what you're doing. Okay?
So I think a very interesting question. So I'll probably rephrase the question in a slightly different aspect. The question is probably if there's IP getting created at a startup level and they want to come and either give it to you or kind of share with you, how does large companies look at like IP sharing from a startup company and then really taking to a larger scale model?
So that's an interesting one. So we have two concerns. Usually we are a little bit afraid. Okay, I'll put it bluntly. And one of the reasons is that, and one of the reasons why we would, at least in the past, hesitate to include a solution for small startup is we don't know whether it is scalable or not. And we would be afraid to take it to a very large customer, and if it fails for any reason, then our reputation also goes, right? So in terms of very quickly including IP from smaller companies, that's the hesitation. And earlier in the past, if you look at some of the government RFPs or even the international RFPs, they would say that you need to be a minimum size company, you should have done this and so on, okay? So and that product should have been tested for some time. So there is a little bit of a startup issue out there. But I think today it's changing and companies are more willing to say, okay, we'll include that in ours. But I'll tell you the other fact is we get inundated with such requests. We get inundated with it, and really for somebody to screen through those and say, okay, these are the tests, which is why I mentioned before that we would have somebody to curate these. Right. And I saw a question that came up there around, what can NASSCOM do? So both the Intel marketing head, Devjani, and I are both on NASSCOM, and one of the things that they do is really that you should maybe meet a person called Ravi Gururaj, okay, who looks into these. And what he does is really he looks at those and then says, okay, these are the three that you should talk to. That will be helpful for you. Yeah. So I think the industry needs some level of curation at some level. Right. Either we do it ourselves or we use somebody like NASSCOM or Intel or anybody else to be able to do that.
That's wonderful. So I think three interesting topics got discussed from our team out there. I think one probably question from my side is, if you had to kind of give a couple of pointers to the teams who are now in a stage of creating a real minimum viable product and then kind of moving from that, what would you like to give to them as a couple of focus areas, how they should evolve going forward? Would you give us any recommendations for them?
Make sure it's a solid solution. Get the worst critic you can find and ask him to poke holes at your solution. Make sure it stands the test of the worst critic. I mean, it has to meet the customer requirement in whichever way you look at it, and then it's got to be scalable and it's got to be technically strong. It's not just about being scalable. Scalable is one element of it, but it needs to stand and not fail. It needs to be very, very strong solution. Those are the things I would say.
Great. So I think it's very interesting to hear from you on the different aspects of how India is emerging as an innovation country and the different areas where innovation is picking up, and your views on how industry can work together to really bring those innovation and people who are working on innovators to come forward. Now, one last question is that we talked about the ecosystem around us, which is really kickstarting. Now, if we have to really create a model where we can really provide innovation opportunities to people who want to create that. Do you see any gaps still, or you think the pace and the environment which is created by companies like Inter or the Mascom is good enough to start with?
I think it's a good start, and I truly, I mean, I'll say this not because you've called me here for the program, but I do seriously believe that what you're trying to do here is extremely good. I saw what you did for the school, the scholarships, the Science Foundation. I think it's really, so it really starts to build a culture of innovation and excellence out there. So I think it's good, and I know that there are other companies like yours which are doing it, so it's a really good effort, I'd say.
Okay. So great. With that, thank you very much for your presence here and the guidance you have given to our teams back there in Pune, as well as to our live audience on the webcast. So very wonderful talking to you, and I hope you will be a part of this journey, and we like to see more such participants from people like you in our the entire event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it. Thanks, and
Thanks a lot.
best wishes to all of you.
Thanks.
Thank you.